Welcome to Secured with Dr. KJ, the podcast where we break down cybersecurity, the technologies driving it, and the companies shaping our digital future. I'm your host, Dr. Kenneth Johnson, cybersecurity leader, technologist, and strategist. Cybersecurity isn't just an IT concern, it's a business imperative. Each episode, we'll explore key topics like cloud security, zero trust, AI-driven defense, and more. We'll assess how tech leaders are adapting, where they need to improve, and what it takes to stay ahead of evolving threats. This podcast features expert insights from security professionals, industry leaders, and technologists, offering real-world solutions to modern cybersecurity challenges. Whether you're a business leader, security expert, or just curious about how technology keeps us safe, this podcast is for you. Subscribe and join the conversation as we explore cybersecurity's biggest challenges, securing tomorrow, one episode at a time. Welcome to Secured with Dr. KJ, where we explore the intersection of security, innovation, and enterprise technology with the leaders shaping our digital future. Today, I'm excited to welcome Stephen Clark to the show. Stephen brings over 25 years of enterprise solution architecture experience to a conversation that's incredibly timely for healthcare organizations everywhere. How do you modernize legacy systems and embrace AI without compromising patient care or data security? Stephen specializes in helping healthcare organizations navigate the complex journey to cloud migration while maintaining strict compliance with HIPAA, NIST, and GRC requirements. From designing phase, migration strategies that minimize downtime to implementing AI-powered solutions that embrace both patient outcomes and cybersecurity, Stephen has seen firsthand what works and what doesn't in healthcare modernization. Today, we'll tackle critical questions keeping healthcare CISOs up at night. How do you move from legacy systems to hybrid cloud without disrupting clinical operations? What does it take to balance clinical access with data privacy? And perhaps most importantly, how do you harness AI responsibility to improve patient care while protecting against bias and misuse? Stephen, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kenneth, I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of your podcast and, kind of talk about some cybersecurity challenges that we have, in industry. And again, really appreciate the opportunity to be part of your little show here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it very much and looking forward to the conversation. So you're in healthcare and it's still running on legacy systems. So how do we move towards the cloud without disrupting patient care?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things. In fact, there's so much we could talk about. This could be almost like a YouTube podcast just on this one topic.
Right.
However, I will tell you, let's talk about some basic concepts first. Number one, healthcare as a whole relies upon often outdated legacy systems. Today, because of that hurdle, and because of the fact we're so reliant upon old data, old legacy technologies, and even if you have solutions like Epic or Cerner, a lot of times you have band-aided approaches and integrations to allow for those products to run. But today, a lot of I would say enterprise level hospitals, they're looking for AI-powered healthcare application integration. They're looking for enhancements to R&D. How can we produce the most benefit to our patients? How do we transition away from legacy technologies? How do we meticulously plan and execute upon a strategy that addresses these specific complexities in healthcare? So a couple of things that we can talk about. Number one is, how do we take a look at a phased and methodical migration approach to cloud or hybrid cloud for healthcare? I think we can all agree that a big bang approach to cloud migration is ill-advised in healthcare. Number one, you're going to negatively impact patient care. You'll have downtime, you'll have challenges with data acquisition, things that we take for granted. For example, if you go to the hospital and you require surgery, the medications or Schedule I drugs that they give to you, well, there are APIs and integrations that allow for that nurse or physician to even administer those drugs to begin with. So taking a big bang approach would put that process at risk, number one.
Right.
Number two, in healthcare, the goal is not to impact the patient experience. So you want to minimize the risk of downtime. You want to ensure that your clinical staff can adapt to new systems gradually. And what that means at the end of the day, from considerations perspective, particularly in healthcare, and HIPAA, 405D, NIST CSF, GRC considerations is, one, you need to take into consideration three big things. Number one, data interoperability standards. If you are doing a migration from a legacy EHR EMR system and you're going to, let's say, Epic or Cerner, you first have to understand from a data interoperability standards perspective, what legacy solutions you have put in place. Will those solutions work with Epic to begin with? For example, HL7, healthcare level 7 interfacing, that's critical. That's a standard. Okay, so data interoperability standards discovery has to be conducted. Part two, and this is the big one, as you begin to migrate to cloud or consider other solutions for modernization, is data cleansing and validation. This is, I would say, even has widespread implications to AI, and we can talk about that later. But data cleansing and validation ensures that your patient data has been qualified, validated, cleansed, that it's ready for migration, that you've gone through a thorough assessment and cleansing of that data to remove any type of inaccuracy or inconsistency in the database or in the API integrations that you have or the reporting standards that you have. And literally, in most large-scale enterprise migrations to cloud, throughout the migration process, continuous data validation is absolutely required. It's necessary to ensure that you don't have information lost or that you have any corruption of the data itself. And you'd be surprised in large-scale healthcare industry vertical situations where they're going to cloud that you have your core EMR, EHR solution, but you have these outlying databases that have to be kept up or kept in sync for other application workloads. So that data cleansing and validation is absolutely key and critical. The big one that often gets overlooked is data backup and disaster recovery. You'd be surprised from a DR, BC, PHA capabilities perspective, this gets overlooked, right? Just because you go to cloud, it doesn't matter whether it's AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google's infrastructure or private cloud. That oftentimes is considered last. So usually security first. How do we get the applications up? How do we migrate our data? What security standards we have put in place? Are we meeting general controls? Once you get up to cloud or in a hybrid cloud scenario situation, the last question that's asked, which it should not be, is how do we have business continuity if we have a data breach inside of our data center? What if we're ransomware? Or what if we lose an application workload in cloud? How do we recover from that and continue to operate? And so those top three things, data interoperability standards, data cleansing and validation, and having a robust data backup and disaster recovery plan is absolutely key when it comes to your migration to cloud and ensuring that you have standards and operating procedures for making that happen.
So, I mean, having a hot site would make sense, right? For disaster and recovery to.
Yeah.
So do most hospitals or just healthcare facilities in general in your industry, do they have that type of hot site? I know it's a very expensive endeavor to go down, but like, what does that look like to you as an industry, you as a company? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a very observative question statement. Number one, your decision to move to a hot site or have a hot site is going to be dependent upon your migration strategy to cloud. So let's talk about what types of migration strategies exist for any industry vertical, including healthcare.
Right.
Number one, there's the good old-fashioned lift and shift or rehosting.
Right.
That typically doesn't go well for large enterprise organizations. That's a very big bang-based approach, meaning whatever you have today, you're going to uplift it to cloud, and you're taking the good and the bad with you, okay? And that's not really a modernized effort, but it's still an approach that you'll see smaller hospitals or smaller organizations take. If you are in a lift and shift situation and you already have a hot site, that hot site has almost zero value at that point. Once you are running in cloud, you then have to re-engineer that connection or that high availability solution with that third-party provider or that other data center you have. And it has to have all the integrations pre-built, including things like networking, small things you take for granted in IT, things like domain name resolution, right? All of that changes. How do we manage traffic? How do we balance the workload considerations that we have? What about mobile workers? Okay, so whether you have a hot site or not, you may, in fact, I've seen some hospitals have two data centers right next to each other, or they have one data center and they have racks for production and racks for high availability from a DRBCP perspective, right? They're just hoping that their data center doesn't burn down. Right. It's not an act of God. But if you lift and shift to cloud, you're now 100% dependent in most cases upon your cloud provider. And then you have to re-engineer that solution back to be able to provide maybe a third-party data center or currently pre-existing data center solution for failover.
Wow.
Then there's that's right. So lift and shift, I would never say is the right way to go. There are three other solutions which typically work out. Number one, replatforming, refactoring, re-architecting, and then the hybrid cloud approach. I want to start off with that last one first. Most healthcare organizations that have really done a good job of modernizing look at the hybrid cloud approach first. And why? You kind of get to pick and choose what you take to cloud first. Number one, it's a very effective long-term solution because you're not boiling the ocean. For example, identity and access management. If you're relying upon legacy Active Directory technologies on-premise, which 99.9% of all organizations are, you can't just upend your identity access management solution and dependency upon Active Directory from a big bang approach. You can't just say, hey, that goes away. We're going to SailPoint. We're going to do a mobile for MFA or go to Entra ID, that solution that Microsoft offers. You have to have a regimented approach. And this is where the value of hybrid cloud comes in. So if you have, for example, two data centers and you say, hey, we want to move solutions up a little bit at a time to cloud, you can maintain your current portfolio of services, your high availability DRBCP plans remain intact, and you slowly begin to modernize with a hybrid cloud approach. And so, for example, if you're dependent upon Active Directory, you can sync your identities to cloud and use Entra ID or have a SailPoint integrated solution, something of that nature. But your clinical community, back office community, and patients don't know really truly what's happening. It's completely seamless to them. And that gives the IT department the opportunity to catch up and decide which workloads do we modernize, which workloads do we re-platform, which workloads do we refactor and re-architect from the ground up, or in a lot of cases, I would say more for enterprise level hospitals, you go to a SaaS model, right? So you can take an application that's out of date, it's legacy, modernize it with SaaS, and take that incremental approach, crawl, walk, run efforts to get to cloud, but not have to tackle everything that you have today all at one time.
No. And so let's go back to the data, right? The sensitive data piece of this. So how do you really balance clinical, or clinicians' access with privacy and compliance?
That is the fundamental big question that all healthcare organizations have today. In fact, retail, manufacturing all have this challenge too.
Right.
So I would say there's four things that you need to consider if you're a CIO or if you're in charge of data privacy or you're a solutions architect or engineer at any large healthcare organization. Let's talk about those. Let's call these data migration best practices. Number one, go through a thorough data assessment. You first have to understand what your as-is state is before you can modernize, right? So what do we have? Where does the data live? What integrations do we have? What APIs, external apps, internal apps are hitting that data? And do we have data extracts coming out of those heavy iron application workloads? It's very common, Kenneth, to see organizations taking data out of Epic, throwing it into a data warehouse, as an example. So you really need to understand from a data assessment perspective what you have. Otherwise, moving it or identifying where it resides, who's consuming it, who's interfacing into it, you're going to break all that. So first, go through a thorough data assessment. Part two, from a data privacy perspective, you can't have good data privacy without a data assessment. So this is where, for example, if you're worried about data privacy, data compliance, data security, you need to have first a thorough data assessment. By doing this, number one, you can say, here's what we have. Here's how we align to HIPAA level guidelines. Oh, we have gaps. We have a database, a data warehouse where there's no data loss prevention. There's no data lineage type of approach to the management of our data. Or my favorite, we have a citizen developer community using things like RPA, and they're great people. They're developing all these wonderful patient oriented technologies, but they have access to data that, based upon their role, poses a challenge from a HIPAA level guidelines perspective. Mm-hmm. By going through the data assessment first and then going through the compliance and security first approach, meaning that, hey, here's the general controls we don't adhere to. How do we get there? You can take a crawl, walk, run approach to that and show incremental progress. So that way, when the internal auditors come in or third-party auditors, right, and they say, hey, where do you stand in regards to the following HIPAA level control? You can say, here was the as-is state a year ago. Here's the progress we've made this year. And that allows for you to map out and blueprint how do we perform the last two phases, which would be a phase data migration and a data validation and testing phase as well. So do a data assessment, focus on compliance and security first, then get into the phase data migration and the data validation and testing. It's sort of like that whole don't put the cart before the horse type scenario.
Yeah. So then my other question is the biggest question of all is AI. So it's definitely reshaping everything that we do. And I know it's changing the way healthcare is done moving forward. I remember being in an appointment and they were using what was it? It was a phone, and it was just listening to our conversation. And then once that conversation was over, it created the notes. It uploaded it to my patient file, and I was able to access it within minutes. Right. Whereas, usually it's like a day or two before you actually get anything back from a physician. Yeah. So knowing that AI is changing the way healthcare is being provided now to the patient, how do you see it being used to protect the patient data while avoiding the risks of bias and misuse? So that's a deep question.
It is.
Because there are lots of people that have biases against healthcare, right? You have those folks that are, I want to be all natural. I don't want to take a shot, right? And what's the misuse? And how are you using the data to then classify me against all of, let's just say cancer, for instance, right? There's a cancer patient. Are you misusing their data and then comparing it to others? How is that being used? So it's a deep question, but I would love your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So I love these questions, and I love how deep and broad you're going. And again, just this topic alone, we could spend 3 hours on this podcast.
Right.
So let's first talk about two topics. Number one, there is the patient care and productivity version of AI. Okay, that's part one. Part two of that conversation is how do we bolster infrastructure and patient data security with the use of AI? Okay, so there's a big difference. Using AI for the benefit of the patient and mankind, and then using AI to protect the data that it's consuming. And that's two totally different conversations. So let's talk about the latter, bolstering patient data security with AI. There are four, I would say, core critical areas that cybersecurity teams like mine are having to deal with. Number one is intelligent threat detection, enhanced access controls, automated compliance monitoring, and of course, data encryption and anonymization. We see AI-oriented threats against our infrastructure in the United States and in every healthcare organization 24/7, 365. So particularly in healthcare, because healthcare has the crown jewels, Kenneth, for you and I, all of our PII and PHI. If you can exploit that data and sell it on the dark web, you're going to do very well if you can get away with it. Right? So there are cybersecurity tools and solutions and platforms out there that use AI for intelligent threat detection. Hey, do I see an uptick or an oddity from a network monitoring perspective, right? Do I see an oddity in user behavior? Do we have an individual from an insider risk perspective taking our PHI or PII and misusing it? Same thing with enhanced access controls, automated compliance monitoring, data encryption. AI can do a really wonderful job if you tackle the use case and choose the right technology to protect in those four ways. And that's another 4-hour conversation around cybersecurity. But then when you start talking about how do we chart a course for responsible use AI in healthcare to provide the best patient outcomes, you're right. You can have AI bias. You can have, I would say, misinterpretation of outcomes. And then a physician may be even misled if they're too dependent upon AI. So a couple of things that we can do to counteract that. And you'll see, KJ, you'll see this at a lot of large hospitals. Number one, if you're going to use AI, you need diverse and representative data. That data has to be clean. AI, to me today, has the discernment of a mouse. AI doesn't really discern today. It doesn't know, is the data Stephen Clark provided me, is it truthful? Is it accurate? So you have to have diverse and representative data that's truthful. Otherwise, you'll have AI bias. Part two of that is, if you do provide an AI prompting engine to your clinical and non-clinical workers, as an example, you need a way to continuously monitor and audit the use of that prompting engine. For example, if I'm a data analytics analyst, I don't necessarily need access to all PHI or all PII or all outcomes. Maybe my focus is on, we need to improve radiology outcomes, and that's it. Right. So most AI engines they are directed to have access based upon the user's persona. So continuous monitoring and auditing is very important. And the last two, and I'll close out here, transparency and explainability, right? So in other words, when AI makes a decision based upon the data, how did it come to that understandable justification for its feedback loop, right? So did we train the AI engine or the prompting engine or the large language model based upon good data? So those individuals that are utilizing it from I'll just call it IT data analytics AI perspective, they need to have enough access to, from a transparency perspective, how did that AI prompting engine come to the conclusion that it did? This doesn't sound right. The fourth one is, and this is a big one, this is very hard to tackle from a AI perspective, and that is all organizations need a robust AI governance and ethical framework policy in place. In other words, AI roles, AI responsibilities. How do we ensure AI compliance from a regulations perspective? What are the protocols put in place to monitor for the use of AI? Did we have a process to address adverse events related to AI? Do we have a NIST standards approach, National Institute of Standards and Technology? Do we have something built for AI risk management framework, right? So that way, as we embrace and modernize our use of AI, are we doing so in a responsible way? This will lead to, I would say, better patient outcomes. It will lead to better clinical empowerment and ensure that the data being used is unbiased and will also, again, impact from efficiency gains perspective the use of AI. So everybody wins, but that's a lot to tackle. And so I would just say my recommendation is take it from a crawl, walk, run approach. Identify the use cases you're solving for. Do you have a good compliance program put in place? Can you automate the auditing of the use of AI? And then how do you measure quantifiably from a KPIs perspective, is this working for us? How do we define success? And then carry on from that point.
Wow, Stephen, all the nuggets that you have been dropping. I mean, can you give the listeners your final thoughts though?
Yeah. One, if you take a look at all the AI projects out there, around 75 to 80% plus are failing because there wasn't a blueprint put in place. And so as you're migrating to the cloud, it's going to be the same way. You need a blueprint. You need a reasonable crawl, walk, run approach for leveraging hybrid cloud or cloud native solutions, really taking consideration who the audience is. What processes do you have that are not well documented? All organizations have some degree, I'll call it shadow IT or shadow process. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it's not documented and it's not well understood. Really understand how you operate as an organization and then map it out to a plan, map it out to a blueprint, go through pilots, go through proof of concepts, make sure that you have executive buy-in first and make sure you have funding to actually tackle this type of initiative. AI, same thing. Make sure you have the support, the funding, and the use cases identified that you want to tackle.
Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise. The insights you provided on a hybrid cloud migration, data governance, and responsible AI implementation are invaluable for anyone navigating healthcare modernization. For our listeners, remember Stephen's key takeaway: whether you're migrating to the cloud or implementing AI solutions, success comes down to having a solid blueprint and taking the crawl, walk, run approach. Don't try to boil the ocean. Start with thorough assessments, prioritize compliance and security, and ensure you have an executive buy-in before diving in. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe to Secure with Dr. KJ wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a review. It helps other security and technology leaders find these important conversations. And Stephen, I meant what I said. We've barely scratched the surface today. We need to get you back on the show to dive deeper into some of these topics. There's so much more to explore. This is Dr. KJ, securing tomorrow, one episode at a time.